You're probably wondering what happened to Malik, aren't you? Whether he survived that hit and run on Valentine's Day. Whether karma finally delivered the justice he deserved. Well, let me tell you. The woman behind that wheel, her name was Tiana Brown. She was one of the women Malik had been with during our marriage. Not Aaliyah, the main mistress. Tiana came before her. One of many, I'd later learn. A woman he'd met at some work conference, slept with a handful of times, promised a call, and then ghosted completely when she started wanting something real. Tiana had been watching him, following him, waiting for the perfect moment to make him pay for using her, discarding her, treating her like she was nothing. And on Valentine's Day, while he was buying roses for yet another woman, her moment came. The impact was brutal. I heard about it from mutual acquaintances who couldn't wait to share the news. How Malik's body had flown through the air, how he'd hit the pavement hard, how the roses scattered across the concrete like drops of blood, how people screamed and ran to help while Tiana sped away, her mission accomplished. The ambulance arrived within minutes. Paramedics worked on him right there on the sidewalk while a crowd gathered, some filming on their phones, some praying, some just watching with morbid curiosity. Malik didn't die, but in some ways, what happened to him was worse than death. But before I continue, I need you to do something for me. If you're just joining us, or if you watched part 1 and came back for part 2, please subscribe to Presify Stories and hit that notification bell. This story gets even more incredible, and you won't want to miss a single moment. Like this video and comment your country below so I know where you're watching from. Trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. Now, back to Malik. The doctors at Houston Memorial Hospital worked on him for hours. His right leg had been crushed in the impact, bones shattered, blood vessels destroyed, tissue damaged beyond repair. They tried to save it. They really did. But after 3 emergency surgeries and the threat of infection spreading through his body, they had no choice. They amputated his leg just above the knee. My ex-husband, the man who'd been so vain about his appearance, who'd spent hours at the gym keeping his body perfect, who cheated on his dying wife partly because he wanted to feel young and desirable, lost his leg. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, especially not me. I found out about it 2 days after it happened. I was in the hospital myself, different hospital, different wing, a different world entirely. I'd been admitted because my pain had become unmanageable. The cancer was spreading rapidly, eating away at my body from the inside out. One of the nurses, a sweet woman named Monique Johnson who'd been taking care of me, came in during her shift with gossip she couldn't contain. "Girl, did you hear about Malik Harris?" she asked, checking my IV line. I looked up at her, my body too weak to do much more than turn my head. "What about him?" "He got hit by a car on Valentine's Day," Monique said, her voice dropping to a whisper even though we were alone in the room. "Lost his leg. They had to amputate it. He's over in the trauma center right now." I should have felt something, satisfaction maybe, or vindication, or even pity, but all I felt was nothing, a hollow sort of emptiness where emotions used to be. "Is that right?" I said quietly. "They're saying it was one of his exes who hit him, some woman he was messing around with before that other girl, what's her name, Aaliyah? Apparently, he'd done her dirty too, and she snapped, ran him down right in front of that flower shop on Richmond." She shook her head. "Karma is real, honey. Karma is so real." I closed my eyes. Karma. Everyone kept using that word, like the universe had some cosmic scoreboard, keeping track of every wrong and making sure everyone got what they deserved. Maybe it was true. Maybe Malik losing his leg was karmic justice for how he treated me, for abandoning me when I needed him the most, for making my last months on earth lonelier than they had any right to be. Or maybe it was just a random act of violence by an unhinged woman who couldn't handle rejection. Either way, it didn't change anything for me. It didn't cure my cancer. It didn't give me back the time I'd wasted on him. It didn't undo the pain he'd caused. It just was. How do you feel about it? Monique asked, studying my face. I mean, I know y'all were married. That's gotta bring up some feelings, right? I don't know what I feel. I'm too tired to feel much of anything anymore. And that was the truth. The cancer had stolen so much from me. My health, my energy, my future. It had even stolen my capacity for strong emotions. Everything felt muted now, like I was experiencing life through a thick fog. Monique patted my hand gently. You just rest, honey. Don't worry about him. He made his choices, and now he's living with them. You focus on you. I nodded and closed my eyes again, drifting in that strange space between sleeping and waking where the pain medication kept me most days. Malik had lost his leg, and I was losing my life. We'd both been reduced to less than we were, both broken in different ways. The difference was, I hadn't done anything to deserve what was happening to me. He had. The days blurred together after that. Hospital stays and home visits from hospice nurses. Good days where I could sit up and talk to my daughters, and bad days where I could barely open my eyes. The cancer was winning, and everyone knew it. Kiara and Monique were my constant companions when they weren't in school. They'd sit on either side of my bed at home, telling me about their classes and their friends, and all the normal 12-year-old drama that felt both trivial and precious at the same time. I memorized their faces during those days. The way Kiara's eyes lit up when she talked about her science project. The way Monique bit her lower lip when she was concentrating on her homework. The sound of their laughter, the feeling of their hands in mine. I was dying and I needed to remember everything about them. Every detail, every moment. Because soon, these memories would be all I'd have. Mama moved in with us full time. She'd given up her own house, packed up her things, and set up camp in our guest room. She cooked meals I couldn't eat. She changed my bedding when I was too weak to do it myself. She held my hand through the worst of the pain. You're going to be okay, baby, she'd whisper sometimes, even though we both knew it was a lie. But it was a comforting lie, the kind of lie a mother tells her dying daughter because the truth is too terrible to speak aloud. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after I'd heard about Malik's accident, I had a visitor I didn't expect. I was dozing in bed, drifting in and out of consciousness, when I heard Mama talking to someone downstairs. A man's voice, deep and gentle. Not Malik. I'd have recognized his voice anywhere. Someone else. A few minutes later, Mama came up to my room. Jasmine, honey, you have a visitor. Are you up for company? I opened my eyes slowly. Who is it? It's Dr. Robinson, Mama said. Your oncologist. He says he was in the neighborhood and wanted to check on you. Dr. Darius Robinson, my cancer doctor, the man who delivered my death sentence 3 months ago. Send him up, I said, trying to sit up a little straighter. I must have looked terrible. I'd lost so much weight that my clothes hung off me like I was a child playing dress-up. My ruby red hair had started falling out in clumps from the brief round of chemo I'd tried before deciding quality of life was more important than a few extra weeks of suffering. But Dr. Robinson didn't flinch when he walked into my room. He smiled at me, a real smile, warm and genuine, and sat down in the chair beside my bed like this was the most natural thing in the world. Jasmine, how are you feeling today? Like I'm dying, which I am, so I guess that's accurate. Dr. Robinson didn't laugh at my dark humor. Instead, he leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, and looked at me with those kind brown eyes of his. I wanted to check on you, he said. I know you haven't been coming to the clinic for appointments, and I understand why. But I wanted to make sure you had everything you needed, pain medication, support, whatever you need to be comfortable. I have everything I need, I assured him. Mama's taking good care of me, and the hospice nurses are wonderful. Good, he said, nodding. Then, after a pause, can I ask you something? Sure. How are you doing? Really doing? Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, if that's something you think about. It was such an unexpected question that I didn't know how to answer at first. Most doctors asked about pain levels and symptoms. They didn't ask about my soul. Pause, trying to find the right words. I'm scared. I'm sad. I'm angry sometimes. But mostly, I'm just tired. So tired of fighting, so tired of being sick, so tired of watching my daughters try to be brave when I know they're terrified. Dr. Robinson nodded slowly. That's understandable. All of those feelings are completely valid. Everyone keeps treating me like I'm already gone, I continued, surprised by how much I wanted to talk to him. They look at me with these pitying eyes like I'm a ghost they can already see through. They talk in soft voices and handle me like I'm made of glass. And I hate it. I hate being the dying woman. I hate that that's all I am now. You're not all you are, Dr. Robinson said firmly. You're a mother, a daughter, a friend, a woman who survived losing her first husband and raised 2 daughters alone. A woman who had the courage to stand up for herself when her second husband betrayed her. You're so much more than your illness. His words hit me like a physical force. Tears sprang to my eyes, the first real tears I'd cried in weeks. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you for seeing me, not just the cancer, me. I've always seen you, Jasmine, Dr. Robinson said softly. I've seen you from the first day you walked into my office, and I'm going to keep seeing you for however long you want me around. Something shifted in that moment, something I couldn't quite name. Dr. Robinson wasn't looking at me like a patient or a dying woman or a tragedy. He was looking at me like a person, like someone who mattered beyond their diagnosis. And I realized how desperately I'd been craving that. Someone who didn't treat me like I was already dead. Dr. Robinson started coming by more often after that. At first, it was once a week. He'd stop by on his way home from the hospital, always with some excuse. He was checking on medication, or following up on some symptom, or bringing me information about a new pain management technique. But we both knew those were just excuses. He was coming to see me, to talk to me, to treat me like a human being instead of a terminal case. We'd sit in my room, him in the chair beside my bed, me propped up on pillows, and we'd talk about everything and nothing, about his childhood in Houston, growing up with 3 brothers in a house that was always full of noise and laughter, about my life with Andre and the girls, the happiness I'd known before cancer, about books we'd read and movies we'd seen, and places we'd always wanted to visit. He told me about why he became an oncologist. His grandmother had passed away from breast cancer when he was in college, and he'd watched her suffer through treatment that was almost worse than the disease. He'd vowed to become a doctor who not only treated cancer, but treated the whole person, their fears, their pain, their humanity. You do that, I assured him. You really do. He smiled. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. Why from me? I asked. Because you're one of the strongest people I've ever met, he said simply.
The way you've handled everything, your diagnosis, your ex-husband's betrayal, preparing your daughters for what's coming, you've done it all with such grace. I admire that. No one had called me strong in months. Everyone had called me brave or inspiring or a fighter, but those words felt hollow. They felt like things people said to dying people because they didn't know what else to say. But strong, that felt real. That felt true. The girls noticed Dr. Robinson's visits, of course. They'd peek in sometimes while he was there, curious about this man who made their mother smile when she barely smiled anymore. One day, after he'd been visiting for about a month, Kiara worked up the courage to talk to him directly. "Are you going to make Mama better?" she asked, standing in the doorway with Monique right behind her. Dr. Robinson looked at her with those kind eyes and answered honestly, "I can't make your mama's cancer go away. I wish I could, but I can't. But I can try to make sure she's comfortable and not in too much pain. And I can be her friend if she'll let me." "She needs friends," Monique said quietly. "She's been really lonely." "I know," Dr. Robinson said. "That's why I come to visit." The girls seemed satisfied with that answer. They started warming up to him after that, sometimes staying in the room during his visits, doing homework or drawing while we talked. Mama noticed too. She'd give me these knowing looks every time Dr. Robinson showed up, like she could see something I couldn't. "He's a good man," she told me one night after he'd left. "Real good. The kind of man who shows up." "He's my doctor, Mama," I said, but even I could hear how weak the protest sounded. "He's more than that," Mama said, "and you know it." Did I know it? I wasn't sure. I was dying. I didn't have time or energy to think about what Dr. Robinson's visits meant beyond the simple fact that they made me feel less alone. But Mama was right about one thing. He was a good man, the kind of man who showed up, unlike Malik, who'd run away the second things got difficult. Meanwhile, across town, Malik was living his new reality. I heard about it through the same gossip network that had told me about his accident in the first place. People loved to share news, especially when it involved someone who'd fallen from grace so spectacularly. Malik had been discharged from the hospital after 2 weeks. He'd been fitted with a prosthetic leg, but learning to use it was proving difficult. He couldn't work, not yet, maybe not ever in the same capacity. His accounting firm had put him on disability leave, which was just a nice way of saying they didn't know if they'd keep him long term. His apartment, the lonely one-bedroom he'd moved into after I'd kicked him out, wasn't wheelchair accessible, and he couldn't afford anything better. His savings were gone, spent on medical bills and the lawyer fees from our divorce. Tiana, the woman who'd hit him, had been arrested. She was facing charges of assault with a deadly weapon and attempted murder. But that didn't help Malik. It didn't give him his leg back or his life back or undo any of the consequences he was now living with. He tried to reach out to people, friends, family, anyone who might help him. But most people had distanced themselves after they'd learned what he'd done to me, how he'd abandoned his dying wife, how he cheated and lied and shown his true character when it mattered most. Malik was alone, completely, utterly alone, learning to navigate the world with one leg, with no support system, with nothing but his guilt and regret to keep him company. And honestly, I felt nothing about any of it. Not satisfaction, not pity, not vindication. Just nothing. Maybe that made me cold. Maybe it made me heartless. But when you're dying, you don't have energy to waste on people who never cared about you in the first place. Dr. Robinson learned about Malik during one of his visits. I mentioned it casually. The nurse who told me about the accident, the ex-husband with one leg, the karmic irony of it all. "That's your ex-husband? The one who left you?" Dr. Robinson asked, his face serious. "The very same," I said. "How do you feel about what happened to him?" "Honestly, I don't feel much of anything." "Is that terrible?" "No," Dr. Robinson said firmly. "You're not required to feel anything about someone who treated you so poorly. Your emotional energy is precious right now. You get to choose where you spend it. I choose to spend it on my girls and on Mama, and on moments like this, talking to you." Something flickered in Dr. Robinson's eyes, something warm and tender that made my heart skip a beat, despite everything. "I'm glad you choose to spend it on me," he said softly. We looked at each other for a long moment, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between us, an acknowledgement of something that was growing, slowly and surely, in the space between doctor and patient, between two people who'd found each other in the darkest of circumstances. But neither of us said anything, because what was there to say? I was dying. Whatever was developing between us, it had an expiration date written all over it. The 2-month mark came faster than I expected. The date that Dr. Robinson had originally given me as my projected end. The day I was supposed to die. But I didn't die. I woke up that morning in pain, yes, but alive. Breathing, conscious. Still here. Mama made my favorite breakfast even though I could barely eat. Pancakes with fresh strawberries, just like she used to make when I was a little girl. The girls gave me handmade cards telling me how much they loved me. And Dr. Robinson showed up in the afternoon, even though it was his day off. "You're still here," Dr. Robinson said when he walked into my room. "I'm still here," I agreed. "Good," he said, sitting down in his usual chair. "I'm glad." "The doctor said 2 months," I pointed out. "It's been 2 months." "Medicine isn't an exact science," Dr. Robinson said. "We make our best predictions based on data and experience, but every patient is different. Every body fights differently. Some people surprise us." "Is that what I'm doing? Surprising you?" "Every single day," he said, and the way he looked at me when he said that made something in my chest tighten. We talked for hours that day. About everything and nothing, about the girls and their school year winding down, about Mama and how she was holding up, about the latest book he'd brought me, some romance novel about second chances that he thought I might enjoy. As the sun started setting, casting golden light through my bedroom window, Dr. Robinson grew quiet. He sat there, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "What?" I asked finally. "Why are you looking at me like that?" He paused, seeming to struggle with his words. "I'm just thinking about something. Something I want to ask you, but I don't know if it's appropriate." "We're past appropriate," I said with a weak laugh. "You've seen me at my worst. You've held my hand through panic attacks and pain episodes. You've met my family and sat with my daughters. There's no such thing as inappropriate between us anymore." Dr. Robinson smiled slightly. "I suppose that's true." He leaned forward, his hands clasped between his knees, and looked at me with those warm brown eyes that had become so familiar, so comforting over the past few months. "Jasmine," he said, his voice soft but certain, "there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been feeling for a while now, but I didn't know if I should say anything. But life is short. You've taught me that more than anyone, and I don't want to waste time not being honest about what's in my heart." My own heart started beating faster. I knew what was coming. Somehow I knew it, and I was terrified and exhilarated all at once. "What is it?" I whispered. Dr. Robinson, Darius, took a deep breath, and then he said the words that would change everything. Wait, I know what you're thinking. You want to know what he said, don't you? What words could possibly change everything for a dying woman who'd already lost so much? Well, let me back up just a little bit, because to understand the magnitude of what Darius was about to say, you need to understand where I was mentally and emotionally in that moment. I'd been living in a state of suspended animation for months, waiting to die. That's not living. It's existing in the space between life and death, never fully in either place. I'd stopped making plans, stopped thinking about the future, stopped hoping for anything beyond making it through one more day. Everyone around me was doing the same thing. Mama was planning my funeral. The girls were preparing themselves to be motherless. The hospice nurses were managing my symptoms and making me comfortable. That word they always used, like comfort was some kind of consolation prize for dying. Even Dr. Robinson, for all his kindness and warmth, had been treating me like someone on borrowed time, someone to be gentle with, careful with, because the end was near. But something had shifted over those 2 months. The days I was supposed had run out, and I was still here, still breathing, still fighting even when I didn't mean to be fighting. And Darius, I'd started thinking of him as Darius somewhere along the way instead of Dr. Robinson, had shifted too. The way he looked at me wasn't with pity anymore. It wasn't even with professional concern. It was something else entirely. Something that looked an awful lot like... No, I couldn't let myself think it. Couldn't let myself hope for something that impossible. But here he was, sitting beside my bed on the day I was supposed to have passed away, looking at me like I was the most important person in his world, about to say something that required a preamble about honesty and hearts and not wasting time. "Darius," I said, using his first name for the first time out loud. "Whatever you need to say, just say it, please." He smiled at that, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes and made the corners crinkle. "All right," he said, "I'll just say it. Jasmine, I've fallen in love with you." The words hung in the air between us. Impossible words, ridiculous words, beautiful, terrifying, completely illogical words. "What?" I whispered, sure I'd heard wrong, sure the pain medication was making me hallucinate. "I'm in love with you," Darius repeated, his voice steady and sure. "I know it's crazy. I know you're my patient and I'm your doctor, and there are about 1,000 ethical lines I'm crossing just by saying this. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel what I feel. I can't keep showing up here and talking to you and getting to know your beautiful daughters and sitting with you while you watch the sunset and not acknowledge that somewhere along the way, I fell completely and utterly in love with you." Tears streamed down my face now, not sad tears this time, but confused, overwhelmed, disbelieving tears. "Darius, I'm dying," I said. "You know that better than anyone. You're my oncologist. You've seen my scans. You know what's happening inside my body." I know all of that. And I'm not telling you this because I think we're going to have 50 years together or grow old on some porch somewhere. I'm telling you this because right now, in this moment, I love you, and I want you to know that. I want you to know that you're loved, not pitied, not managed, not cared for out of professional obligation, but loved, genuinely, deeply loved. My chest felt like it was being crushed and expanded at the same time. How could this be happening? How could this impossible, wonderful, tragic thing be happening to me? I don't understand, I said through my tears. How? When? Why? Darius reached out and took my hand, the hand that was all skin and bones now, the hand with bruises from too many IV lines. He held it gently, like it was something precious. There wasn't one moment, he said. It was all of them. It was the way you talked about your daughters, the fierce love in your voice even when you were in pain. It was your honesty about being scared but refusing to give up completely. It was your sense of humor, even dark humor, about dying. It was the way you listened when I talked about my day, like my problems mattered even though yours were so much bigger. He squeezed my hand gently. It was the way you've handled everything with such grace, the way you've prepared your girls for losing you while still being present for them now, the way you fought to hold on to your dignity and your humanity, even as the cancer tries to take both away. I fell in love with who you are, Darius continued. Not who you were before cancer or who you might have been if things were different, but who you are right now, this brave, beautiful, complicated woman that makes me want to be a better man and a better doctor. I was sobbing now. Full, body-shaking sobs that hurt my ribs and made it hard to breathe. But they were tears, healing tears. Nobody's ever loved me like that, I managed to say. Not even Andre, as wonderful as he was. He loved who I was when things were easy. Malik couldn't love me at all. But you're saying you love me now, like this. When I'm at my worst? You're not at your worst, Darius said firmly. You're at your truest. And yes, I love you like this. I love you exactly as you are right now. But I'm dying, I repeated, because I couldn't wrap my mind around this, around someone choosing to love me when I had nothing to offer but heartbreak and an ending. We're all dying, Jasmine, Darius said. Every single one of us. Every single day. None of us knows how much time we have. The difference is, you know your timeline might be shorter, but that doesn't make what we could have together any less real or valuable. If anything, it makes it more precious.
He leaned closer, his eyes locked on mine. I would rather have one day of loving you openly and honestly than a lifetime of pretending I don't feel what I feel. I would rather spend whatever time you have left making you feel cherished and valued than spend it regretting that I never told you the truth. What are you asking me? I whispered, afraid to hope, afraid to believe this could be real. I'm asking you to be with me, Darius said simply. I'm asking you to let me love you for however long you want me to. I'm asking you to be my girlfriend, even though that word feels too small for what I feel. I'm asking you to spend whatever time you have left, not as a dying patient, but as a woman who's loved deeply and completely. My mind was reeling. This was insane. This was the most romantic and tragic thing that had ever happened to me. This was impossible and perfect and heartbreaking all at once. Everyone's gonna think you're crazy, I said. They're gonna say you're doing this out of pity or because you feel guilty about my prognosis. They're gonna question your ethics and your judgment. Let them, Darius said. I know what's in my heart, and more importantly, you'll know what's in my heart. That's all that matters. My mama's gonna have questions, I said, a laugh bubbling up through my tears. I'll answer every single one, Darius promised. The girls, they're gonna be confused. They're going to worry about getting attached to someone else who might leave them.
I'll talk to them. I'll be honest with them. I'll make sure they know I'm not trying to replace their fathers, either of them. I'm just someone who wants to love their mother and help take care of her. I have maybe weeks left, maybe days. You could be signing up for a very short, very painful relationship. Or I could be signing up for the most meaningful relationship of my life, Darius countered. Jasmine, I'm not asking for forever. I'm just asking for now, for today, for whatever time we have. I looked at him, really looked at him, at this man who'd spent months showing up for me when he didn't have to, who'd treated me like a person instead of a diagnosis, who'd made me laugh when I thought I'd forgotten how, who'd given me something I thought was gone forever. Hope. Not hope that I'd survive. I was past that kind of magical thinking, but hope that I could be loved one more time before I died. Hope that my last days could be filled with something more than pain and goodbyes. Hope that I mattered to someone beyond my role as mother or daughter or cancer patient. Yes, I whispered. Darius's face lit up. Yes? Yes, I said more firmly. Yes, I'll be your girlfriend. Yes, I want you to love me. Yes, I want whatever time we have together, however short or long it might be. The smile that broke across Darius's face was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Pure joy, untainted by pity or sadness or any of the other emotions people usually showed me these days. He stood up and leaned over my bed, careful not to hurt me, and pressed his forehead against mine. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for giving me this chance. Thank you for asking, I whispered back. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for loving me when nobody else could. We stayed like that for a long moment, foreheads pressed together, breathing the same air, existing in a bubble of impossible happiness. Then Darius pulled back slightly and laughed, a sound of pure joy and relief. I need to tell you something else, he said. There's more? I asked, wiping my tears. There's always more with me, he said with a grin. But this is important. I need to officially recuse myself as your doctor. I can't ethically be both your boyfriend and your oncologist. So I'm going to transfer your care to my colleague, Dr. Aaliyah Harris. She's excellent, and she'll take good care of you medically. Aaliyah Harris, I repeated, then laughed. That's unfortunate. Why? My ex-husband's mistress is named Aaliyah. Different last name, but still, it's ironic. We can find you a different doctor if that name bothers you, Darius offered immediately. No, it's fine. It's actually kind of funny. My life has become such a soap opera anyway. Might as well lean into it. Darius laughed again, and the sound filled me with warmth. When was the last time I'd heard genuine laughter in my room? When was the last time I felt anything other than pain and sadness? I should probably tell Mama and the girls. They're going to have opinions. Should I be here when you tell them, or would you rather do it alone? Be here, I said immediately. If we're doing this, we're doing it together. Together, Darius repeated, and the way he said it made it sound like a promise. Telling Mama was exactly as interesting as I anticipated. Darius went downstairs to get her while I tried to compose myself and failed completely. My face was blotchy from crying, my eyes were red, and I couldn't stop smiling like an idiot. Mama came bustling into my room, Darius right behind her, worry written all over her face. What's wrong? She demanded. The doctor said we needed to talk, and you've clearly been crying. Nothing's wrong, Mama. Actually, something's very right. Mama stopped mid-panic and looked between me and Darius with suspicion. What's going on? I've asked Jasmine to be my girlfriend, Darius said directly, and she said yes. Mama's mouth fell open. For a moment, she just stood there, frozen in shock. Then she looked at me. Is this true? It's true, I confirmed, still smiling. But Mama gestured vaguely at me, apparently unable to finish the sentence. Dying? Yes, Mama, I'm still dying, but apparently I'm also going to have a boyfriend in the meantime. Mama looked at Darius with eyes that could cut through steel. Dr. Robinson, can I speak to you privately for a moment?
Mama, I started to protest. It's okay, Darius said gently. Your mother has every right to question my intentions. They went out into the hallway, and I could hear the murmur of their voices, even though I couldn't make out the words. Mama's tone was sharp at first, demanding, but gradually it softened. By the time they came back into the room 15 minutes later, Mama's eyes were wet with tears. He really loves you, she said to me, her voice thick with emotion. I can see it. I can feel it. This man really, truly loves you. I know, I said. Mama came over and sat on the edge of my bed, taking my hand. Baby, are you sure about this? I don't want you getting hurt. I don't want... Mama, I interrupted gently. I'm dying. What's the worst that could happen? That I'll get my heart broken? That someone will leave me? None of that matters anymore. What matters is that right now, in this moment, someone wants to love me, and I want to let him. Mama looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay. If this is what you want, then I support you. Both of you. She turned to Darius. But you hurt my daughter, doctor or not, boyfriend or not. I will make your life a living hell. Are we clear? Crystal clear, ma'am, Darius said with a slight smile. And I promise you, hurting her is the last thing I'd ever do. Mama nodded, satisfied. Good. Now, have you told the girls yet? Not yet, I said. We wanted to tell you first. They're going to have questions, Mama warned. I know, Darius said, and I'm ready to answer them honestly. Telling Kiara and Monique was even more complicated than telling Mama. We called them up to my room together. They came bounding up the stairs, their footsteps loud and energetic in a way that reminded me how young they still were. Just 12 years old. Still children, really, even though they'd been forced to grow up too fast. They stopped in the doorway when they saw all three adults in the room. Me in bed, Mama in her chair, and Darius standing by the window. What's wrong? Kiara asked immediately, always the one to sense tension. Nothing's wrong, sweetie, I said, patting the bed beside me. Come, sit, both of you. We need to talk about something. They came in slowly, suspiciously, and climbed onto the bed on either side of me. Monique immediately took my hand, her grip tight. Are you sicker? Monique asked, her voice small. No, I assured her. No, this isn't about that. This is actually good news. At least, I think it's good news. Both girls looked skeptical. They'd learned not to trust good news. Good news in our house usually came with a catch. Dr. Robinson and I have been spending a lot of time together, talking, getting to know each other, and we've discovered that we care about each other a lot. Like friends? Kiara asked. Like more than friends, I said. Like he asked me to be his girlfriend, and I said yes. Both girls' eyes went wide. They looked at Darius, then at me, then at Mama, then back at Darius. You're dating our mom? Monique asked him directly. I am, Darius confirmed.
if that's okay with you both. But Kiara struggled to form her question. But Mama's sick, really sick. Why would you want to date someone who's dying? It was the question I'd known was coming, but hearing it from my 12-year-old daughter's mouth still hurt. Darius came over and knelt down beside the bed so he was at eye level with both girls. That's a really good question, Kiara, he said seriously, and you deserve an honest answer. I want to be with your mom because I love her, not because I feel sorry for her, not because I think I can save her or cure her cancer, but because getting to know her over these past few months has been one of the best things that's ever happened to me. But she's going to die, Kiara said bluntly, tears forming in her eyes. Soon. And then you'll be sad and alone, just like us. You're right, Darius said. I will be sad, very sad, but I'll also be grateful that I got to know her, that I got to love her, and that maybe for whatever time she has left, I can help make her happy. What about us? Monique asked quietly. Are you trying to be our new dad? No, Darius said firmly. Nobody could ever replace your father. Either of them. Your real dad, Andre, was an amazing man from everything your mom has told me. And even though things didn't work out with Malik, I'm not trying to take his place either. Then what are you? Kiara asked. I'm someone who loves your mom. And if you'll let me, I'd like to be your friend too. Someone you can talk to or hang out with, but I'm not trying to be your dad. That's not what this is about. The girls were quiet for a moment, processing this. Then Monique turned to me. Are you happy, Mama? Does he make you happy? And that was the question that mattered, wasn't it? Not the logistics or the ethics or the inevitable heartbreak. Just, was I happy? Yes, baby, I said, smiling through fresh tears. He makes me very happy. Then it's okay, Monique decided. She looked at Kiara for confirmation. Kiara was harder to convince. She'd always been the more protective one, the one who questioned everything. But after a long moment, she nodded slowly. Okay. But if you hurt our mom, we'll be really mad at you. That's fair, Darius said with a smile. I'd expect nothing less. And you have to promise something else, Kiara continued, her voice getting stronger. When she's gone, you have to promise you'll still remember her, that you'll tell people about her, that she mattered to you. Darius's eyes filled with tears. I promise, I will never, ever forget your mother. She's already changed my life in ways I can't even fully explain yet. And I'll make sure everyone knows what an incredible woman she was. That seemed to satisfy both girls. They hugged me tight, one on either side, and I closed my eyes and let myself feel grateful. Grateful that my daughters were so strong, so brave, so willing to let a little bit of happiness into our sad situation.
Can we still call you Dr. Robinson? Monique asked. Or do we have to call you something else now? You can call me whatever makes you comfortable, Darius said. Dr. Robinson is fine. Or Darius, or just, hey you. I'll answer to anything. That made both girls giggle, and the sound was like music. The news spread through our small circle quickly. Mama couldn't keep a secret if her life depended on it. And soon everyone knew that I, dying, terminal, supposed to be dead already, me, had a boyfriend. The reactions were mixed. Some people thought it was beautiful, romantic. They said things like, love conquers all, and every moment counts, and how wonderful that you found each other. But others were skeptical. I could see it in their faces when they visited.
in the careful way they asked questions. "Are you sure he's not just feeling guilty?" one of Mama's church friends asked during a visit. Doctors sometimes get attached to their patients, especially the terminal ones. "Are you sure this is what you need right now?" another friend questioned. "Maybe you should be focusing on the girls, on making memories with them instead of starting a new relationship. What happens when you're gone? Won't this just make it harder for everyone?" The questions were frustrating, but I understood where they came from. People couldn't comprehend why someone would choose to love someone with an expiration date. They couldn't see past the tragedy to the beauty of what Darius and I were building. But Darius never wavered, not once. He showed up every single day. He brought me flowers, not pity flowers, but beautiful arrangements in my favorite colors. He brought books to read to me when I was too tired to read myself. He brought movies we could watch together, carefully choosing ones that weren't too sad or too romantic or too anything that might remind us of the inevitable. He helped Mama around the house without being asked. He helped the girls with their homework. He sat with me through the bad pain days, holding my hand and talking to me about anything and everything, just to keep my mind off how much I was hurting. He learned what foods I could still eat and brought them for me. He figured out which positions were comfortable when I was in bed and helped arrange my pillows just right. He noticed when I was getting cold and covered me with blankets before I had to ask. And most importantly, he never, ever looked at me with pity. He looked at me with love, pure, genuine, untainted love. "I don't understand how you do it," I told him one evening. We were sitting in my room, him in his usual chair, me propped up on pillows. The sun was setting outside my window, casting everything in golden light. "I don't understand how you can love someone who's dying, how you can be so present when you know how this ends." Because the ending doesn't define the story. Yes, you're going to die, eventually, but we're all going to die eventually. That's not the point. The point is what we do with the time we have, and I choose to spend my time loving you. But it's going to hurt. When I'm gone, it's going to hurt so much. "I know," Darius acknowledged. "It's going to hurt worse than anything I've ever experienced. But you know what would hurt more? Not doing this, not telling you how I feel, not spending this time with you, living the rest of my life wondering what if. That would be worse than any grief I'll feel when you're gone." He reached out and took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "Jasmine, you've taught me something important," he continued. "You've taught me that time isn't measured in quantity, it's measured in quality. I could have 50 years with someone and waste every single day. Or I could have a few months with you and make every moment count. I choose quality. I choose you." His words hit me deep in my soul, because he was right. Time wasn't about how much you had. It was about what you did with it. And what Darius and I were doing with our time together was creating something real and meaningful and beautiful, even if it was temporary. "I love you," I told him. The words came easily now, where before they would have terrified me. "I love you so much." "I love you too," Darius said, his smile bright enough to light up the room, more than I knew it was possible to love someone. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sunset together, his hand in mine. And I thought about how strange life was. How I'd spent months married to a man who couldn't love me, who ran away when things got hard. And now, at the end of my life, I'd found a man who loved me precisely because things were hard. who showed up not despite my dying, but with full awareness of it, choosing me anyway. It was the kind of love I dreamed of when I married Malik, the kind I thought I'd never experience again after Andre passed away. And here it was, given to me by a man I'd met in the worst possible circumstances, in the darkest chapter of my life. Maybe that's what miracles look like. Not the dramatic, flashy kind, but the quiet, unexpected kind. The kind where love shows up exactly when you need it most, even when you think it's too late. About 3 weeks into our relationship, Darius did something that shocked everyone, including me. He proposed. We were sitting in my backyard. Darius had carried me out there because I wanted to feel the sun on my face and watch the birds at Mama's feeder. I was bundled in blankets despite it being a warm April day, my body unable to regulate temperature anymore. "I want to ask you something," Darius said, setting down the book he'd been reading to me. "What?" I asked, my eyes closed, enjoying the warmth. "Marry me." My eyes flew open. "What?" Darius was kneeling beside my chair, actually kneeling, down on one knee like a proper proposal, with a simple gold band in his hand. "Marry me, Jasmine. I know we've only been together for a few weeks. I know you're still technically in the middle of divorcing Malik. I know you're dying and this seems crazy, but I don't care about any of that. I want to marry you. I want to spend whatever time you have left as your husband." I stared at him, completely speechless. My mind couldn't process what was happening. "Darius," I finally managed, "this is insane. I'm dying in weeks, maybe, probably. You don't want to be a widower at 35. "I don't care," Darius said firmly. "I'd rather be a widower who got to call you my wife than spend the rest of my life regretting that I never asked." "But my divorce from Malik isn't even final yet," I protested.
"It will be in 2 weeks," Darius said. "I checked. Your lawyer said everything's been processed. Once it's official, we can get married immediately if we want. City Hall, no waiting period needed given your circumstances." "You checked with my lawyer?" I asked, not sure whether to laugh or cry. "I wanted to make sure it was possible before I asked," Darius admitted. "I didn't want to get your hopes up if we couldn't actually do it." "My hopes up?" I repeated. "Darius, I don't have hopes anymore. I'm dying." "Stop saying that," Darius said, his voice intense. "Stop defining yourself by what's happening to your body. You're not dying, Jasmine. You're Jasmine who happens to be sick. There's a difference." "Is there?" I asked. "Yes," he insisted, "because dying Jasmine wouldn't say yes to being my girlfriend. Dying Jasmine wouldn't let herself be loved. Dying Jasmine would give up completely. But you haven't. You're still here, still fighting in your own way, still open to happiness and love and life, even when life is being cruel to you." Tears streamed down my face. I don't know what to say. "Say yes," Darius urged. "Say yes and let me give you this. Let me give you a wedding, a marriage, a husband who actually loves you the way you deserve. Let me give you this one last beautiful thing before—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Neither of us could. "What about the girls?" I asked. "What about Mama? What will people think?" "The girls will be happy if you're happy," Darius said. "Your mama will support whatever you choose. And people will think what they want regardless. Stop living your life worried about what other people think." He had a point. I'd spent so much of my life trying to do the right thing, to meet expectations, to be proper and appropriate. And where had it gotten me? Betrayed by a husband who never truly loved me? Dying of cancer at 38 with only months or weeks left to live?
Maybe it was time to stop worrying about what made sense and start doing what made me happy.
Yes, I whispered.
Darius's face lit up. Yes? Yes, I said more firmly. Yes, I'll marry you. It's crazy and illogical and probably a terrible idea, but yes, I want to be your wife. Darius let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob, and carefully pulled me into a hug, mindful of my fragile body. The ring, simple, perfect, exactly right, slid onto my finger next to the wedding band I'd finally removed from my marriage to Malik. "You've made me the happiest man alive," Darius whispered into my hair. "You've made me the happiest dying woman alive," I joked weakly. "Don't," Darius said, pulling back to look at me seriously. "Don't joke about dying right now. Right now, in this moment, you're engaged. You're my fiancé. You're planning a wedding. You're living. That's all that matters." And he was right in that moment. I wasn't dying. I was living. Maybe more fully than I had in years. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. My divorce from Malik was finalized. The papers came in the mail and I signed them without ceremony or emotion. That chapter of my life was over. Had been over for months, really. This was just the official ending. Malik tried to call when he found out about the finalization. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say to him. Our story had ended that night in Dallas, and everything since then was just paperwork and formalities. Meanwhile, Darius and I planned a wedding. The tiniest, simplest wedding you can imagine, but a wedding nonetheless. It would be at Mama's house, in the backyard where he'd proposed, just family and a few close friends. A minister, some flowers, maybe some music. Nothing fancy, nothing that required energy I didn't have. Just a ceremony to make our union official before God and the people we loved. The girls helped plan everything. They picked up flowers, sunflowers, because I'd always loved them. They chose music, a mix of gospel and R&B that felt right for the occasion. They even helped Mama bake a small cake, something simple but beautiful. And they helped me pick out a dress. We couldn't go to a store, I was too weak for that. But they brought catalogs to my bed, and we looked through pages and pages until we found the perfect one. A simple white dress, modest and elegant, that could be altered to fit my much too thin frame. "You're going to be the most beautiful bride," Monique told me, her eyes shining. "I'm going to look like a skeleton in a wedding dress," I said honestly. "You're going to look like our mama getting married," Kiara corrected. "That's all that matters." Their faith in me, their excitement about this wedding, despite everything, nearly broke my heart. They'd lost so much already. Their father, their childhood, the future they'd planned with a healthy mother, and yet here they were, helping me plan a wedding to a man I'd only known for a few months, celebrating my happiness even though they knew it wouldn't last long. "I love you both so much," I told them, pulling them close. "You know that, right? No matter what happens, no matter how much time I have left, I love you more than anything in this world." "We know, Mama," they said together. "We love you too." The skeptics came out in force once word of the engagement spread. "She's marrying her doctor after knowing him for less than 2 months while she's dying? This is insanity. He must be after something. Insurance money maybe, or he's got some kind of savior complex. Those poor girls, they're going to lose their mother and then have to deal with some strange man who thinks he's part of their family? This is what happens when people make desperate decisions at the end of their lives. It's sad, really." The comments hurt, but Darius helped me brush them off. "People are uncomfortable with what we're doing because it challenges their assumptions. They think dying people should be solemn and resigned. They think love should follow a certain timeline and certain rules. We're breaking all those rules and it makes them uncomfortable." "Maybe they're right to be uncomfortable," I said. "Maybe this is crazy." "It probably is crazy," Darius agreed. "But so what? Life is short, yours shorter than most. Why should you spend your remaining time doing what makes other people comfortable instead of what makes you happy?"
"Is this making you happy?" I asked. Truly. Because I need to know this isn't just some noble gesture. I need to know you're not sacrificing your own happiness to give me some fairy tale ending. Darius took my face in his hands, his eyes locked on mine with an intensity that took my breath away. "Jasmine, "Marrying you is the least noble thing I've ever done," he said. "I'm being completely selfish. I want to marry you because it makes me happy, because being with you makes me happier than I've ever been, because I want to call you my wife and wake up every morning knowing that we're married, even if those mornings are numbered. I'm not doing this for you," he continued. "Well, I am doing it for you, but I'm also doing it for me, for us, because this is what I want, what we both want. And yes, it's going to hurt like hell when you're gone, but I'd rather have this pain later than miss out on this joy now." His words settled something in my soul. He wasn't pitying me. He wasn't trying to save me. He was choosing me, actively, deliberately choosing me, with full awareness of what that choice would cost him. And that was love. Real, genuine, grown-up love. The wedding took place on a Saturday afternoon in early May, 3 weeks after Darius had proposed, 1 week after my divorce was finalized, 6 weeks since Darius had first told me he loved me, and 2 weeks before I was supposed to die. The doctors had given me a new timeline. The cancer was spreading faster than they'd expected. My body was shutting down, system by system. I had maybe 2 weeks left, maybe less. But on this Saturday, I wasn't thinking about dying. I was thinking about getting married. Darius's brothers helped carry me downstairs and outside to the backyard. I was too weak to walk on my own anymore, but I refused to be married in my bed. I wanted to be outside, in the sunshine, surrounded by flowers and the people I loved. They'd set up chairs in a semicircle facing an arbor that Darius's brothers had built and decorated with sunflowers. There were maybe 20 people there. Mama, the girls, a few of my closest friends, Darius's family, and the minister from Mama's church. Small, intimate, perfect. I was dressed in my white gown, altered to fit my skeletal frame. The girls had helped me with my makeup, carefully applying just enough to give me some color without looking like I was wearing a mask. My hair, what was left of it after chemo, was styled simply. I looked sick, there was no hiding that, but I also looked happy, and that was worth everything. Darius stood under the arbor in a dark suit, looking more handsome than any man had a right to look. When he saw me, his face broke into the biggest smile I'd ever seen. The ceremony was simple, traditional vows with a few personal touches. When it came time for Darius to speak, he didn't just recite the standard promises. He added his own. "Jasmine, I promise to love you for every day we have together. I promise to cherish each moment, to never take a single second for granted. I promise to make you smile when you can, to hold your hand when you're scared, and to love you with everything I am until my last breath." When it was my turn, I could barely speak through my tears. "Darius, you saved my life," I began, not by curing my cancer or giving me more time, but by reminding me what it feels like to be seen, to be valued, to be loved. You've given me more in these few weeks than some people get in a lifetime, and I promise to love you for every day we have, and beyond. The minister pronounced us husband and wife. Darius kissed me, gentle, tender, full of promise. And everyone clapped and cried, celebrating this impossible, beautiful, bittersweet moment. I was married. Again. For the second time. To a man who actually loved me. It felt like a dream, like something too good to be true. But it was true. It was real. I was Jasmine Robinson now, Mrs. Darius Robinson, a wife again, but this time to a husband who deserved the title. The reception was short. I didn't have the energy for anything elaborate, but we cut the cake, took some photos, and I got to dance with Darius for exactly one song before I had to sit down. But it was enough. It was more than enough. "How are you feeling?" Darius asked, sitting beside me while everyone else mingled. "I'm tired," I admitted, "but happy, so happy." "Good,"
he said, kissing my forehead. That's all I wanted, for you to be happy. I am, I assured him, more than I ever thought possible. And I was. Despite the pain, despite the exhaustion, despite knowing that this happiness was temporary, I was genuinely, deeply happy. That night, after the guests had left and the girls had gone to bed, Darius carried me upstairs to my room. Our room now, I suppose, though I wasn't sure how long that designation would last. He helped me change into comfortable pajamas, carefully removing the wedding dress and hanging it up like it was made of spun gold. "What are you thinking?" I asked as he settled me into bed. "I'm thinking about how lucky I am," he said, climbing into bed beside me. "How grateful I am that I get to call you my wife, even if it's just for a little while." "Darius," I said seriously, "you need to promise me something. Anything. When I'm gone, and I will be gone, probably sooner than later, you need to promise me you'll live. Really live. Not just exist, not just go through the motions, but actually live. Find love again. Be happy. Don't let what happens to me make you afraid to take chances." Darius started to protest. "Promise me," I insisted. "Please. I need to know that my death won't destroy you, that you'll take what we had and use it to make your life richer, not emptier." Darius was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I promise. But right now, in this moment, I don't want to think about after. I just want to be here with you, my wife, in this moment that we have together." "Okay," I agreed. "Just this moment." We lay there in the darkness, his arms around me, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Strong and steady and alive. So alive. And I thought about how strange and wonderful life was. How you could lose everything and still find something worth holding on to. How you could be dying and still feel more alive than you'd felt in years. How love could show up at the worst possible time and somehow make it the best possible time too. I was dying. That was true. But I was also loved. And in that moment, the love felt bigger than the dying.
The 2 weeks the doctors had predicted came and went. I didn't die. Don't get me wrong. I was still sick, still weak, still in pain most of the time, but I didn't die on schedule like I was supposed to. "Maybe the happiness is keeping you alive," Mama joked one morning, bringing me breakfast in bed. Or maybe the doctors were wrong about the timeline. They've been wrong before. But secretly, I wondered if Mama was right. If having something to live for, having Darius, having this new marriage, having joy in my life, was somehow giving my body extra strength to hang on. "How are you feeling today?" Darius asked during one of his daily visits. He still worked at the hospital, but he came by every single day during his lunch break and immediately after his shifts. "About the same," I said. "Tired, achy, but I don't know, maybe slightly less terrible than yesterday." Darius pulled out his stethoscope. He'd started bringing his medical bag to check on me even though he'd officially transferred my care to another doctor. "Your heartbeat is strong," he said after listening. "Stronger than I'd expect given your condition." "Is that good or bad?" I asked. "It's unusual," Darius admitted, "but I'm not going to question it. If your body wants to surprise us by fighting harder than expected, I'm all for it." Another week passed, then 2 weeks, then 3. I was still alive, still here, still getting to wake up every morning as Darius's wife.
The girls were cautiously optimistic. Maybe Mama's getting better, Monique whispered to Kiara when they thought I couldn't hear. Don't, Kiara warned. Don't get your hopes up. The doctor said this was terminal. That means it doesn't get better. But even Kiara couldn't hide the hope in her eyes when she looked at me. The hope that maybe, somehow, I was defying the odds. 6 weeks after the wedding, 8 weeks past my original death date, something remarkable happened. I felt hungry. Not the forced I should eat something feeling that I'd been having for months, but actual, genuine hunger. The kind where your stomach growls and you can imagine tasting food instead of just choking it down because you know you need calories. Mama, I called down to the kitchen where Mama was cooking. It smells amazing. Mama came rushing up the stairs, nearly tripping over her own feet in her excitement. You can smell it? You actually want to eat? I think so, I said, surprised by my own words. I'm actually hungry. Like really hungry. Mama started crying, actual tears of joy streaming down her face. Oh, baby. Oh, my sweet baby. This is good. This is so good. She brought me up a plate. Nothing fancy, just some eggs and toast, and I eat it. Not all of it, but more than I'd been able to eat in months, and it stayed down. I didn't get nauseous. I didn't have to force myself to swallow. I just ate, like a normal person. When Darius came by that evening, Mama told him immediately. She ate today, really ate, and she could smell the food cooking. Her senses are coming back. Darius tried to remain professional, not to read too much into it, but I could see the hope in his eyes too. That's good, Jasmine. That's really good. But we shouldn't jump to conclusions. It might just be a good day. Or it might be something more, I said. Darius, I feel different. Not cured or anything dramatic like that, but different. Less like I'm actively dying and more like I'm just really, really sick. There's a difference? He asked with a slight smile. There is, I insisted. I can feel it. Something's changed. The next day, something else changed. I woke up without the usual screaming pain that had been my alarm clock for months. There was discomfort, yes, but not agony, not the kind of pain that made me wish I could just not wake up at all. Darius, I said when he called during his lunch break, I think we need to run some tests. What kind of tests? I asked. All of them, I said. Blood work, scans, whatever we need to see what's happening inside me, because something's happening. Something's different. I could hear the hesitation in his voice. Jasmine, I don't want you to get your hopes up. Sometimes patients feel better right before... Don't say it. Don't say right before the end. This isn't that. I know what dying feels like. I've been doing it for months. This is different. There was a long pause. Then, okay, I'll schedule you for a full workup tomorrow. We'll see what's going on. The next day, Darius drove me to the hospital himself. I'd insisted on getting dressed in real clothes, not pajamas or a hospital gown, but actual pants and a shirt. It took me 30 minutes and left me exhausted, but I did it. The nurses who had been treating me for months did double takes when they saw me walking in with only Darius's arm for support instead of a wheelchair. Jasmine? Is that you? It's me, still thin as a rail and weak as a kitten, but it's me. They drew blood, so much blood, and then came the scans, CT, PET, MRI, every possible test to see what was happening inside my body. Darius stayed with me through all of it, holding my hand during the scans, talking to me to keep my mind off the enclosed spaces and loud machines. His presence made everything bearable. Results should be back in a few days, the technician said. Your oncologist will call you to discuss them. My oncologist, Dr. Aaliyah Harris, the woman who'd taken over my care when Darius and I started dating. The irony of her name still made me smile. We drove home in relative silence. I was exhausted from all the tests, and Darius was lost in his thoughts. I could see him trying not to hope, trying to remain realistic, trying to protect both of us from potential disappointment. Whatever the results say, I told him as we pulled into the driveway, I want you to know something. These past few months with you have been the happiest of my life. Even if the cancer is still spreading, even if I only have days left, I don't regret anything. Not the relationship, not the wedding, none of it. Darius turned to me, his eyes shining with unshed tears. I don't regret it either, and I never will. 3 days later, Dr. Harris called. I was sitting in bed, Darius beside me, the girls doing homework in their room, Mama cooking dinner downstairs. A normal Wednesday afternoon, except my phone rang and everything stopped. Jasmine, Dr. Harris said, her voice professional but with an edge of something I couldn't identify. I have your test results. Can you come to my office tomorrow? I'd like to discuss them in person. My heart sunk. Doctors only wanted to see you in person when the news was bad, when the news was terminal, when there was nothing left to say except, I'm sorry. Can you just tell me now? I asked, my voice shaking. I need to know. There was a pause. Then, Jasmine, I really think this conversation should happen face to face. Please, I begged. I can't wait until tomorrow. I can't spend the night wondering. Just tell me. Another pause, longer this time. Then Dr. Harris sighed. All right, but I want to preface this by saying we need more tests to confirm what I'm seeing. This is unprecedented. What is? I asked, gripping Darius's hand so tight I was probably hurting him. Your tumors are shrinking, Dr. Harris said. The words didn't make sense at first. I looked at Darius, confused. What? The tumors in your ovaries, your liver, your lymph nodes, they're all smaller than they were 3 months ago, significantly smaller. Some of them appear to be gone completely. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she was saying. That's not possible, I stammered. You said I was terminal. You said I had 3 months, maybe less. You said there was no treatment that would work. I know what I said, Dr. Harris replied, and based on everything we knew 3 months ago, I was right. Your cancer was aggressive and advanced. But something has changed. Something we can't explain with medical science. What do you mean you can't explain it? Darius asked, taking the phone from my shaking hand and putting it on speaker. Tumors don't just shrink on their own. I'm aware of that, Dr. Robinson. And yet that appears to be exactly what's happening. There are documented cases of spontaneous remission in cancer patients. Extremely rare, but it does occur. The body's immune system occasionally figures out how to fight the cancer on its own. We don't fully understand why or how. Are you saying Jasmine is in remission? Darius asked, his voice tight with controlled emotion. I'm saying the cancer appears to be responding to something, Dr. Harris said carefully. Whether it's full remission, I can't say yet. We need more time, more tests, but this is good news. Unexpected, miraculous even, but good news. I started crying. Not sad tears this time, but shocked, overwhelmed, disbelieving tears. Darius wrapped his arms around me and I could feel him shaking too. So what happens now? Darius asked Dr. Harris. Now we monitor closely. We run tests every few weeks to track the progression, or hopefully the regression. We watch for any changes, good or bad, and we remain cautiously optimistic while understanding that cancer is unpredictable. This could continue improving, or it could reverse at any moment. But right now, in this moment, the cancer is shrinking. I asked, needing to hear it again. Right now, in this moment, yes, the cancer is shrinking. After we hung up, Darius and I just held each other and cried. We didn't talk, we didn't analyze. We just held each other and let ourselves feel something we thought was impossible. Hope. Real, genuine, terrifying hope. Telling the girls and Mama was one of the most beautiful moments of my life. We gathered everyone in the living room that evening. The girls sat on the couch, Mama in her recliner, all three of them looking worried because we'd said we needed to talk. We got my test results back today, I began, my voice shaking. Kiara's face crumpled. Mama, no. But wait, I interrupted, laughing through my tears. Wait, it's not bad news. It's good news. The best news. All three of them froze, afraid to believe. The cancer is shrinking, I said. I'm not cured and I'm not out of the woods yet, but the tumors are smaller. Some are gone completely. For a moment, no one moved. Then Monique whispered, "You're not dying?" I'm still dying, honestly. We're all dying eventually, but I'm not dying right now. Not today. Maybe not for a long time. The girls launched themselves at me, nearly knocking me over in their rush to hug me. All three of us were crying and laughing at the same time, holding each other so tight I could barely breathe. Mama was crying too, her hands pressed to her mouth. "Thank you, Jesus," she kept saying. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Don't get too excited, I cautioned, even though I was crying just as hard. The doctors don't know if this will last. The cancer could come back. This could be temporary. But it's something, Kiara said fiercely. It's hope. We have hope now. And she was right. After months of preparing for the worst, of accepting the inevitable, we finally had hope. And hope changes everything. The weeks turned into months, and the impossible kept happening. At my next scan, 6 weeks later, the tumors had shrunk even more. At the scan after that, they were barely visible. My blood work improved. My energy started returning, slowly at first, but then more rapidly. I started gaining weight, filling out the hollow spaces that had made me look skeletal. I started being able to walk without assistance, to go up and down stairs, to cook simple meals and help the girls with homework and do normal, everyday things I'd thought I'd never do again. The medical community was baffled. Dr. Harris presented my case at conferences, trying to understand what was happening. Other oncologists wanted to study me, to figure out what was causing this miraculous remission. But no one could explain it. My body was healing itself, defying every medical prediction, rewriting the rules of stage 4 cancer. "It's the love," Mama said one evening while we were cooking dinner together. Actually cooking, standing in the kitchen like normal people. "That man's love is healing you." "That's not medical science, Mama," I protested, but I was smiling. "Sometimes the best medicine isn't science," Mama countered. "Sometimes it's love and hope and having something to live for." And maybe she was right, because the timeline matched up too perfectly to ignore. I'd started improving right after Darius told me he loved me, right after I'd said yes to life, to love, to happiness, to possibility, instead of just waiting to die. Had that made the difference? Had choosing to live instead of preparing to die somehow given my body the strength to fight? I didn't know. The doctors didn't know. But I couldn't ignore the correlation. 8 months after Darius first told me he loved me, Dr. Harris called me into her office with news that seemed impossible. "I don't know how to tell you this," she said, looking at my latest scans on her computer screen. "So I'm just going to say it. Jasmine, you're in complete remission." I stared at her. "What?" Complete remission, Dr. Harris repeated, turning the screen so I could see. I can't find any evidence of active cancer anywhere in your body. The tumors are gone. Your blood work is normal. By every measurable standard, you're cancer-free. I looked at Darius, who was sitting beside me in stunned silence, then back at Dr. Harris. That's not possible. I know, Dr. Harris said, laughing in disbelief. Believe me, I know. I've been treating cancer patients for 15 years, and I've never seen anything like this. Stage 4 ovarian cancer doesn't just disappear, and yet yours has. So what does this mean? Darius asked. Is she cured? I can't say cured, Dr. Harris cautioned. Cancer can always come back. We'll need to monitor closely for years. But right now, in this moment, there is no detectable cancer in Jasmine's body. She's in complete remission. I started laughing, hysterical, disbelieving laughter that quickly turned into sobs. Darius pulled me into his arms and we both cried, tears of joy and relief and shock and gratitude. I was supposed to be dead, I said through my tears. I was supposed to die 8 months ago. But you didn't, Darius said, his own voice thick with emotion. You didn't die. You fought. Your body fought, and you won. We won, I corrected. We won together. Life after that pronouncement was surreal. I was cancer-free. The dying woman who'd planned her own funeral, who'd prepared her daughters for life without her, that woman was gone. And in her place was just me, Jasmine, alive, healthy, here. It took months to adjust mentally. I'd spent so long preparing to die that I'd forgotten how to live. Simple things would trigger panic, planning vacations, thinking about next year, buying clothes for future seasons. I'd trained myself not to think about the future because I wasn't going to have one. But now I did. I had a future, and I had to learn how to embrace it instead of fear it. Darius was patient through all of it. He understood the psychological adjustment better than anyone. He'd married a dying woman, and suddenly he had a healthy wife. It was jarring for both of us. Sometimes I wake up and panic that it was all a dream, that I'm still dying and this has all been some morphine-induced hallucination. It's not a dream, Darius assured me, pulling me close. You're here. You're healthy. This is real. I don't know how to be the wife of a living woman instead of a dying one, I admitted. Then we figure it out together, just like we figured out everything else. The girls adjusted more quickly than I did. Children are resilient like that. They went from preparing to lose their mother to having her back, and they accepted it with the grace and joy that humbled me. Can we plan my 13th birthday party? Like a real party with friends and cake and everything? Of course, I said, my heart swelling, because I'd be there for her 13th birthday, and her 14th, and her high school graduation someday. All the milestones I thought I'd miss, I was going to be there for them. A year after my remission, something else miraculous happened. I missed my period. At first, I didn't think much of it. My body had been through so much. Cancer, treatment, stress. Irregular cycles were normal. But when I missed a second month and then started feeling nauseous in the mornings, I began to wonder. I need to take a pregnancy test, I told Darius one evening. He looked at me in shock. You think you're pregnant? I don't know, I said, but I'm late, very late, and I feel different. But the doctor said the cancer and treatment probably made you infertile. They said your chances of getting pregnant were almost zero. They also said I'd be dead a year ago, I pointed out. Clearly, my body likes to defy medical predictions. We bought 3 tests. I took all 3, and all 3 showed the same result. Positive. I was pregnant. At 39 years old, after being told I was infertile, after surviving terminal cancer, after everything, I was pregnant.
Darius and I sat on the bathroom floor, staring at those 3 positive tests, completely speechless. "This is impossible," I finally said. "Everything about our story is impossible," Darius replied. "Why should this be any different?" We started laughing, hysterical, joyful, disbelieving laughter that echoed through the house and brought the girls running to see what was happening. "What's going on?" Kiara asked from the doorway. I looked at Darius. He looked at me, and together we said, "You're going to be big sisters." The girls' reactions were priceless. Shock, then confusion, then pure joy. They started jumping up and down, screaming with excitement, firing questions at us faster than we could answer them. When? How? Is it a boy or girl? Can we help name it? Is Mama going to be okay? That last question from Monique made me pause. "Yes, baby, I'm going to be okay. The doctors will monitor me closely, but I'm healthy. We're going to be okay." And I believed it. For the first time in over a year, I truly believed I was going to be okay. The pregnancy was closely monitored. Dr. Harris and a high-risk OB worked together to make sure the baby was developing normally and that I remained cancer-free throughout. Every appointment brought good news. The baby was healthy. I was healthy. My cancer markers remained undetectable. It was like my body had decided that after nearly killing me, it was going to do everything right this time. I found out I was having a boy, a son. After raising twin daughters, I was going to have a son. Darius was over the moon. "A boy," he kept saying, his face lit up with joy. "We're having a boy." "Are you disappointed you're getting a brother instead of another sister?" I asked the girls one evening while we were looking at baby clothes online. "No way," Kiara said. "A brother will be cool. We can teach him stuff. And we'll make sure he respects women," Monique added seriously, "not like Malik." The mention of my ex-husband's name was jarring. We'd all carefully avoided talking about him for over a year. But Monique was right. I wanted my son to grow up knowing how to treat women with respect, dignity, and love. To be like Darius and Andre, not like Malik. "Yes," I agreed. "We'll teach him to be a good man, a man who shows up when things get hard, a man who keeps his promises and loves with his whole heart." "Like Dad," Monique said, and it took me a moment to realize she was talking about Darius, not Andre. Darius, who'd come into our lives when we needed him most, who'd loved me when I was dying, who'd married me knowing I'd probably leave him a widower within weeks, who'd stayed and loved and fought right alongside me. He'd earned that title. Dad. Father to my girls and father to our son, not trying to replace Andre or erase his memory, but adding to our family in a way that honored what we lost while celebrating what we'd found. I gave birth to our son on a warm September afternoon, almost 2 years to the day after I'd been diagnosed with terminal cancer. Labor was long and difficult. My body had been through so much, and pregnancy at 39 after everything else wasn't easy. But when they placed my son in my arms, healthy and perfect and screaming at the top of his lungs, every moment of pain was worth it. We named him Andre Darius Robinson. Andre from my first husband, the father who'd set the standard for what a good man looked like, and Darius for his father, the man who taught me that love could heal even the deepest wounds. "He's perfect," Darius whispered, tears streaming down his face as he looked at our son. "He's absolutely perfect." The girls came to meet their baby brother that evening, both of them careful and gentle as they held him. "He's so tiny," Kiara marveled. "You were this tiny once," I told her. "Both of you were."
I love him, Monique declared. I love him so much already. Mama held her grandson and cried tears of joy. She never thought she'd see this day. When you were so sick, she thought she was going to lose you. And now, look at you. You're a mother again. You're alive and healthy and happy. It's a miracle. It is, I agreed, looking around at my family, my mother, my daughters, my husband, my son. It's the biggest miracle I've ever witnessed. Life settled into a new normal over the next few months. I was a mother to a newborn again at almost 40 years old, which was exhausting but wonderful. Darius was an amazing father, changing diapers and doing midnight feedings and rocking Andre to sleep with a patience and love that made me fall for him all over again every single day. The girls were incredible big sisters. They fought over who got to hold the baby, who got to feed him, who got to change him, though that enthusiasm faded pretty quickly when they realized how many dirty diapers a newborn produces. We were a family, a real, whole, happy family. Something I thought I'd lost forever when Andre died. Something I thought I'd never have again after Malik's betrayal. Something I was certain was impossible when I'd been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And yet, here we were. Living proof that miracles happen, that hope matters, that love can literally save your life. Meanwhile, across town, Malik was living a very different reality. I heard about his life through the same gossip channels that had kept me updated during my illness. And while I'd moved on completely, I had a husband I loved, a newborn son, a second chance at life. I couldn't help but feel a sort of distant sadness for how far he'd fallen. The prosthetic leg never worked right. He tried multiple fittings, different models, physical therapy, everything, but he couldn't adapt. Maybe it was physical, his body rejecting the artificial limb, or maybe it was mental. He couldn't accept what had happened to him, couldn't move past the anger and regret. He lost his job. The accounting firm had eventually let him go, citing performance issues and too much missed work. He tried to find other employment, but nobody wanted to hire a one-legged accountant with a gap in his work history and references who wouldn't vouch for his character. He'd burned through what little savings he had left, lost his apartment, ended up in a cheap room in a boarding house on the bad side of town, started drinking too much, trying to numb the pain and regret that ate at him every single day. Tiana Brown, the woman who'd hit him, had been convicted and sent to prison. But that didn't help Malik. It didn't give him his leg back or his life back. It just meant the person responsible for his physical suffering was punished. It didn't address the suffering he'd caused himself through his own choices. I heard he sometimes stood outside our old house, the one I'd sold after the divorce, the one I'd shared briefly with him. Just stood there on the sidewalk with his crutches, staring at the windows, lost in memories of what he'd thrown away. Someone told me he'd tried to reach out multiple times, letters sent to my mama's address, emails to my old account, even a message passed through a mutual acquaintance asking if I'd be willing to talk to him. I didn't respond to any of it, not out of cruelty, but because there was nothing left to say. That chapter of my life was closed. Malik was part of my past, and my past was something I'd survived and moved beyond. I'd forgiven him in my own way, not because he deserved forgiveness, but because holding on to anger and bitterness would only hurt me. But forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. It didn't mean letting him back into my life or giving him access to my happiness. He'd made his choices, I'd made mine. And we were both living with the consequences. The difference was, my consequences included love, family, health, and joy. His consequences included loneliness, regret, disability, and the knowledge that he destroyed something precious through his own selfishness and cowardice. Karma, people said. What goes around comes around. Maybe that was true. Maybe Malik's suffering was cosmic justice for how he treated me. Or maybe it was just a natural consequence of his actions. People who betray those who love them tend to end up alone. Either way, I felt a distant sort of pity for him. Not enough to reach out or help, but enough to recognize that his life had become its own kind of prison, one he'd built himself through his choices. When Andre, our son, was 6 months old, I had my 2-year cancer-free appointment. The scans came back clear. Blood work normal, no signs of disease anywhere. I've never seen anything like this, Dr. Harris told me, shaking her head in amazement. Stage 4 ovarian cancer, terminal diagnosis, given 3 months to live, and here you are, 2 years later, completely cancer-free, and you just had a baby. It's medically impossible. And yet here I am, I said, smiling. Here you are, Dr. Harris agreed. You're a medical miracle, Jasmine. Your case is going to be studied and written about for years. You've given hope to thousands of patients who are facing similar diagnosis. I'm glad something good can come from what I went through, I said. If my story helps even one person keep fighting, keep hoping, keep believing in possibilities, then it was all worth it. That evening, I sat on the back porch with Darius, baby Andre sleeping in my arms, watching the girls play in the yard. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and everything felt perfect. Do you ever think about that night in Dallas, when you drove Malik and his mistress to their romantic weekend? Sometimes, I admitted. It feels like a lifetime ago now, like it happened to someone else. In a way it did, Darius said. You're not the same woman who drove that car. You're not even the same woman I met in the oncology clinic. You've transformed completely. He was right. The woman I'd been, the woman married to Malik, the woman dying of cancer, the woman who'd given up on happiness, she was gone. In her place was someone stronger, happier, more whole. I'm grateful for all of it, I said. Even the hard parts, even the dying, because it brought me here, to this moment, with you and the girls and Andre. I wouldn't trade this life for anything. Not even for more time without the cancer? Darius asked. Not even for that, I said firmly, because the cancer taught me things I needed to learn about strength and hope and what really matters, about not wasting time on people who don't value me, about choosing happiness even when circumstances seem hopeless. I looked at him, this man who'd loved me at my lowest point, who'd married me thinking we'd have weeks together, and now we had forever. You saved my life, I told him, not just medically, though maybe that too, but emotionally, spiritually. You reminded me that I was worth loving, that I deserved to be happy, that my life had value beyond just being a mother or a patient or a dying woman. You saved yourself, Darius countered gently. I just loved you while you did it. Maybe we were both right. Maybe salvation was a team effort, part love, part hope, part choosing to fight when giving up would be easier. 3 years after my diagnosis, I was asked to speak at a cancer survivors conference. I almost said no. Public speaking terrified me, and talking about my experience felt too personal, too raw. But Darius encouraged me. He said, your story could help people who are where you were 3 years ago, scared, hopeless, preparing to die. Maybe hearing how you survived could give them hope. So I said yes. I stood on that stage in front of hundreds of cancer patients and survivors and told my story, all of it. The diagnosis, the abandonment by my husband, the decision to confront him during that road trip to Dallas, the descent into what I thought were my final days. And then the turn, the unexpected love, the choice to say yes to happiness even when death seemed certain, the miraculous remission that doctors still couldn't explain. I'm not telling you this story to give you false hope, I said to the audience. My case is rare, extremely rare. Most people with stage 4 cancer don't experience spontaneous remission. Most people who are given 3 months to live don't make it to 3 years. I paused, looking out at all those faces, some hopeful, some skeptical, all of them carrying the weight of their own diagnoses and fears. But here's what I learned, I continued. Whether you have 3 months or 3 years or 30 years left, the choice of how to spend that time is yours. You can spend it preparing to die, or you can spend it choosing to live. You can focus on everything you're losing, or you can focus on everything you still have. I chose to live, I said, my voice strong and certain. Even when every doctor said I was dying, even when my body was failing, even when giving up would have been easier, I chose to live. I chose to love. I chose to hope. And maybe that choice, that shifting mindset helped tip the scales in my favor. Or maybe it was just dumb luck and good timing. I don't know.
But what I do know is this. I was happier in those weeks when I thought I was dying, but was choosing to love and be loved than I'd been in years of good health spent with someone who couldn't value me. Quality over quantity. Presence over promises. Love over fear. So whatever time you have left, whether it's measured in days or decades, make it count. Surround yourself with people who love you. Say yes to joy, even when circumstances seem joyless. Fight not just against the cancer, but for the life you want to live. And most importantly, I concluded, never ever let anyone make you feel like you don't matter just because you're sick. You matter. Your story matters. Your happiness matters. Your life matters, for however long you have it. The applause when I finished was overwhelming. People were crying, standing, coming up to me afterward to share their own stories and thank me for my honesty. But the moment that mattered most came from a young woman, maybe 25 years old, bald from chemo, who grabbed my hand with tears streaming down her face. I was planning to give up, she whispered. I was going to stop treatment. But hearing your story, maybe I'll keep fighting a little longer. Maybe there's still hope. There's always hope, I told her, squeezing her hand. Always. Even when you can't see it. Even when everyone says it's over. There's always hope. Now, 5 years after my diagnosis, I'm sitting in my backyard watching my family. Kiara and Monique are 17 now, beautiful, strong young women getting ready to graduate high school. They're both talking about college, about their futures, about all the dreams they're going to chase. Dreams they're going to chase with their mother there to support them, something they thought impossible 5 years ago. Little Andre is 3 years old, running around the yard with the kind of energy that only toddlers possess. He looks like his father, same warm brown eyes, same bright smile. But he has my determination, my stubbornness, my refusal to accept limitations. Darius is grilling burgers, laughing at something Mama said. He's exactly the same as he was 5 years ago. Kind, patient, loving. The man who saw me not as a dying patient, but as a woman worth loving. The man who chose me when I had nothing to offer but heartbreak. And me? I'm healthy, truly healthy. 5 years cancer-free with no signs of recurrence. My hair grew back, still ruby red, because some things don't change. My body is strong again. I wake up every morning without pain, without fear, without the shadow of death hanging over me. I'm alive, fully, completely, joyfully alive. Sometimes I think about the woman I was 5 years ago.
The woman lying in that hospital bed, skeletal and weak, planning her funeral. The woman who thought her life was over at 38. The woman who'd given up on happiness. And I'm grateful to her. Grateful that even in her darkest moment, she found the courage to say yes to one more chance at love. Grateful that she chose to confront her cheating husband instead of letting him get away with his betrayal unacknowledged. Grateful that she taught her daughters what strength looks like even when you're falling apart. That woman saved my life by refusing to disappear quietly, by demanding to be seen, by choosing hope over resignation. I think about Malik sometimes too, not with anger or bitterness anymore, but with a sort of distant sadness. He taught me what I didn't want. A man who runs when things get hard, who values novelty over commitment, who can't appreciate what he has until it's gone. His life became the cautionary tale. Mine became the miracle story. And the irony isn't lost on me. The husband who abandoned his dying wife ended up broken and alone, while the wife who was supposed to die ended up healthier and happier than ever. Karma? Maybe. Or maybe just a natural consequence of the choices we all make. Malik chose selfishness. I chose love. And we both got exactly what we chose. People ask me sometimes how I did it, how I survived terminal cancer, how I found love in the midst of dying, how I built this beautiful life from the ashes of everything I'd lost. And I always tell them the same thing. I didn't do it alone. I had my daughters who gave me a reason to keep fighting even when I wanted to give up. I had my mama who never let me lose sight of who I was beyond my diagnosis. I had Darius who loved me not despite my dying, but simply because of who I was. And I had hope, that stubborn, illogical, beautiful hope that refuses to die even when everything says it should. But most importantly, I had a choice, and I chose life. Over and over again, in big ways and small ways, I chose life. I chose to confront Malik instead of letting him escape accountability. I chose to say yes when Darius said he loved me. I chose to get married even though I was dying. I chose to keep fighting even when doctors said there was no hope. I chose to believe in possibilities even when impossibilities surrounded me. And those choices, those tiny, terrifying, courageous choices, added up to a life worth living. Last month, I ran into someone from my past, a woman who'd known me when I was married to Malik, when I was sick, when everyone thought I was dying. She almost didn't recognize me at first. I was in the grocery store with Andre in the cart, healthy and strong, and laughing at something my son said. "Jasmine? Is that really you?" "It's me," I confirmed with a smile. "But I heard you were dying. Everyone said you had cancer, that you only had months left. That was years ago." "I did have cancer. I was dying. And then I didn't die. I got better." "That's impossible," she breathed. "I know," I agreed. "And yet, here I am." She looked at Andre. "Is this your son?" "Yes, this is Andre. He's 3. "But you thought you couldn't have more children after the cancer and everything." "So did the doctors," I said. "Turns out everyone was wrong about a lot of things." She shook her head in disbelief. "This is incredible. It's like you got a whole new life." "I did," I said simply. "I got a second chance, and I'm not wasting a single moment of it." So what's the moral of my story? What's the lesson you're supposed to take from this crazy, impossible, beautiful journey?
It's this. Life can change in an instant. You can go from healthy to dying, from married to divorced, from hopeless to hopeful.
And you can't control most of what happens to you. But you can control how you respond. You can control who you let into your life and who you need to walk away from. You can control whether you give up or keep fighting. You can control whether you choose bitterness or hope, resignation or love. I could have spent my final months drowning in anger at Malik for abandoning me. I could have closed my heart completely, protecting myself from any more pain. I could have refused Darius's love because accepting it seemed too risky, too temporary, too impossible. But I didn't. I chose differently. And that choice, that willingness to be vulnerable, even when vulnerability seemed dangerous, saved my life in ways medicine never could. Because here's what I learned. Love is healing. Not in some mystical, magical way, but in a very real, physiological way. When you feel valued and cherished and seen, your body responds. Your immune system strengthens. Your will to live intensifies. Your entire being aligns towards survival instead of surrender. The doctors can't explain my remission, but I can. I was loved back to life. Darius loved me when I needed it most. My daughters loved me through their fear. My mama loved me past her grief. And I loved them all right back with everything I had. That love, that fierce, genuine, unconditional love, gave my body a reason to fight. It gave my cells a message. This woman is needed. This woman matters. This woman has people who want her here. And somehow, miraculously, my body listened. So if you take nothing else from my story, take this. Never underestimate the power of love. Real love. The kind that shows up when things get hard instead of running away. The kind that chooses you even when choosing you seems illogical. The kind that sees you at your absolute worst and says, I still want this. That kind of love doesn't just make life worth living. Sometimes it makes living possible at all. And what about Malik? What about karma and justice and people getting what they deserve? I'll be honest with you. When I first heard about his accident, about him losing his leg, about his life falling apart, I felt nothing. I was too sick, too focused on my own survival to care about his suffering. But now, years later, with perspective and healing and happiness in my life, I feel something different. Not pity exactly, but a kind of sad recognition that he created his own prison. See, losing his leg wasn't the real punishment. The real punishment was losing the chance to be part of something beautiful. He could have been there for me during my illness. He could have held my hand through chemo and doctor's appointments and scary test results. He could have been a real father to my girls, supporting them through the terror of potentially losing their mother. He could have been part of this family that came through the fire stronger and more connected than ever. Instead, he's alone. Not because he lost his leg, but because he lost himself. He lost his integrity, his character, his ability to show up when it mattered. And you can't build a life, a real, meaningful life, on that kind of foundation. The physical injury was just the visible manifestation of the spiritual and emotional damage he'd already done to himself through his choices. Tiana running him down didn't destroy his life. He'd already destroyed it by betraying everyone who'd ever loved him. That's the real karma. Not the dramatic hit and run, but the slow, inevitable consequence of being someone people can't trust or count on. That's the kind of loneliness you can't escape because it follows you wherever you go. And honestly, that's a fate I wouldn't wish on anyone. Not even him. My daughters are leaving for college soon. Kiara wants to study engineering. Monique wants to be a teacher. Both of them are brilliant, compassionate, strong young women who understand what real love looks like because they've seen it modeled in their home. They remember the bad times, living with Malik, watching their mother get sicker, preparing to lose me. But they also remember the turnaround. They remember Darius showing up every day. They remember the wedding in the backyard. They remembered the impossible news that the cancer was shrinking. And most importantly, they remember that their mother chose to fight. That even when everything seemed hopeless, I didn't give up. I kept choosing love and hope and life day after day after day. You taught us something important, Mama. You taught us that we're never too sick, never too broken, never too far gone to deserve love and happiness. That we should never settle for someone who can't show up for us when things get hard. You taught us to recognize real love when we see it. Not the exciting, dramatic kind, but the steady, reliable kind. The kind that Dad shows you every single day. They call Darius Dad now, without hesitation. Not because they've forgotten Andre. We talk about their biological father all the time, sharing stories and keeping his memory alive. But because Darius has earned the title through years of showing up, loving them, being present in their lives. That's what real fatherhood looks like. Not biology, but behavior. Not genetics, but genuine care and commitment. And I'm so grateful my daughters get to learn that lesson. So grateful they get to see what healthy love looks like before they go out into the world looking for their own partners. Little Andre is 3 years old now, and he's the most joyful child I've ever known. He doesn't know about my cancer, about how close he came to never being born. He just knows he has a mama who loves him, a daddy who adores him, 2 big sisters who spoil him rotten, and a grandma who bakes him cookies whenever he asks. He doesn't know he's a miracle baby. To him, he's just a baby. A toddler learning to navigate the world, testing boundaries, asking a million questions, demanding stories before bed. And that's exactly how it should be. He doesn't need to know about the darkness that came before him. He just needs to grow up in the light, surrounded by love and security and people who choose to show up for him every single day. Sometimes I watch him playing in the yard and think about alternate timelines. The one where I died 3 years ago, where he was never conceived, never born. The one where Darius and I never found each other, where I spent my final months alone and bitter. Those timelines were so close to my reality. One different choice, if I'd said no to Darius's love, if I'd given up hope, if I'd let the cancer win, and none of this would exist. But I didn't. And here we are, living in the impossible timeline, the one where the dying woman didn't die and the miracle baby came to be. People ask me if I'm afraid the cancer will come back, if I live in constant fear of relapse, of the other shoe dropping, of my miracle running out. And the answer is complicated. Yes, there's always a part of me that's aware it could return. Every headache makes me wonder. Every unexplained pain triggers anxiety. Every annual scan brings that familiar dread. But I don't live in that fear. I can't afford to. Because if I spend all my time waiting for the cancer to come back, I'm not really living. I'm just existing in a different kind of limbo.
So instead, I choose to be present, to soak up every moment with my family, to appreciate my health while I have it, to make memories that will last even if the worst happens. And you know what? That's how everyone should live, whether they've had cancer or not, because none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. None of us know when our time will run out. The only difference is that cancer survivors are more aware of that reality. So I live like every day could be my last. Not in a dramatic, reckless way, but in an intentional, grateful way. I tell my husband I love him every single day. I hug my children tight. I call my mama just to chat. I take pictures of ordinary moments, because ordinary moments are actually extraordinary when you almost lost the chance to experience them. That's not cancer making me live that way. That's wisdom, hard-earned, battle-tested wisdom that came from staring death in the face and deciding I wanted more life. Last week, on the 5-year anniversary of my diagnosis, Darius and I went back to the hospital where I'd been treated. Not because I had an appointment, but because I wanted to do something meaningful. We set up a small scholarship fund for cancer patients who couldn't afford their treatment. Not a huge amount, we're not wealthy, but enough to help a few people every year, enough to maybe give someone else the fighting chance I was given. "Why are you doing this?" one of the hospital administrators asked. "Most people want to forget about their cancer experience once they're in remission." "Because I can't forget," I said simply, "and I don't want to. Yes, it was the worst time of my life, but it was also the time that taught me the most about love and hope and what really matters. And if sharing my story or helping other patients can make someone else's journey a little bit easier, then all of it, the pain, the fear, the suffering, it all means something." That's what I want my legacy to be. Not just the woman who survived terminal cancer, but the woman who used that survival to help others, who turned her pain into purpose, who chose to let her impossible story give other people hope when they needed it most. So here's where I am now, 5 years later. I'm married to the love of my life, a man who saw me at my absolute worst and chose to love me anyway, a man who's been by my side through sickness and health, through dying and living, through every twist and turn of this crazy journey. I have 3 incredible children, 2 teenage daughters who are about to go out into the world and change it, and a little boy who reminds me every day what pure joy looks like. I have my health, real, vibrant, take it for granted health. I wake up without pain. I make plans for the future without wondering if I'll be alive to see them happen. I exist in my body without it feeling like a battleground. I have peace. I've made my peace with what happened. The cancer, the betrayal, the near-death experience. I don't carry anger or bitterness anymore. I've forgiven everyone who needed forgiving, including myself. And I have gratitude, deep, overwhelming, sometimes brings me to tears gratitude for this second chance at life, for every ordinary day, for every family dinner and bedtime story and morning coffee, for the privilege of being alive and healthy and loved. This is what the other side of impossible looks like. This is what happens when you refuse to give up, when you choose love over fear, when you keep fighting even when everyone says the fight is over. As for Malik, I heard recently that he'd finally hit rock bottom, lost his room at the boarding house, spent some time on the streets, eventually ended up at a shelter for homeless veterans. He'd served briefly in the National Guard years ago, something I'd forgotten about. The shelter helped him get into a program for disabled veterans, got him into therapy, helped him work through some of his demons. He's apparently learning to use his prosthetic leg properly now, working with the counselor to process his guilt and regret. And I hope he finds peace. I really do. Not because I've forgiven him in the sense of welcoming him back into my life. That door is closed and locked forever. But because I've learned that hating someone doesn't hurt them. It only hurts you. Malik's punishment is living with himself, with the memories of what he did and what he lost, with the knowledge that he had something precious
and destroyed it through his own weakness. That's enough. I don't need to wish any additional suffering on him. Instead, I hope he learns from his mistakes. I hope he becomes the kind of man who shows up for people. I hope if he ever gets another chance at love, he doesn't waste it the way he wasted what we had. Because everyone deserves a chance at redemption. Even people who've done terrible things. Even people who've hurt us deeply. That doesn't mean I have to be part of his redemption story, but I can wish him well from a distance and mean it. That's what real forgiveness looks like. Not reconciliation, not forgetting, but releasing the anger and moving forward without the weight of bitterness dragging you down. So what would I say to someone who's going through what I went through? Someone who's sick and scared and watching their marriage fall apart. Someone who's been given an impossible diagnosis and doesn't know how to keep fighting. I tell them this. First, know your worth. You are not your diagnosis. You are not your failing marriage. You are not your circumstances. You are a whole, complete, valuable person who deserves love and respect and dignity no matter what's happening to your body or your life. Second, demand to be seen. Don't disappear quietly to make other people comfortable. Don't shrink yourself to accommodate people who can't handle your reality. Stand up, speak out. Make sure people acknowledge what you're going through and how they're treating you. Third, stay open to love. Even when it seems impossible. Even when protecting your heart seems safer. Because the right kind of love, genuine, showing up, choosing you love, can literally save your life. Fourth, choose life over resignation. Keep fighting, keep hoping, keep believing in possibilities, even when impossibilities surround you. Your mind has more power over your body than you realize. Choose to live actively and intentionally every single day. And finally, remember that your story isn't over until you say it's over. Doctors can give you statistics and timelines, but they're just educated guesses. You are more than a statistic. You are capable of defying odds, surprising everyone, rewriting the ending that everyone else has already written for you. I was supposed to die 5 years ago, but I didn't. I chose differently. And that choice led to this life, this beautiful, impossible, miraculous life that I almost missed out on. Don't miss out on your miracle. Don't give up before you see what's possible. Don't let anyone, not doctors, not circumstances, not even your own fear, tell you that your story is over when you still have fight left in you. Tonight, I'm going to tuck Andre into bed and read him his favorite story about a little train that could. I'm going to hug my teenage daughters and tell them I love them and I'm proud of them. I'm going to kiss my husband goodnight and thank him for choosing me when choosing me seemed crazy. And then I'm going to fall asleep in my own bed, in my own house, in my healthy body, surrounded by people who love me. 5 years ago, I thought those days were behind me. I thought I'd used up all my chances at happiness. I thought my story was ending in tragedy and loneliness and regret. But I was wrong. So beautifully, impossibly wrong. My story didn't end. It transformed. It became something bigger and more meaningful than I ever imagined possible. And if that can happen for me, the woman who was given 3 months to live, who was betrayed by her husband, who had every reason to give up hope, then it can happen for anyone. Life is full of second chances. Sometimes they come disguised as impossibilities. Sometimes they show up at your worst moment. Sometimes they ask you to be braver than you think you can be. But they're there, waiting for you to choose them. Waiting for you to say yes to life even when death seems certain. Waiting for you to believe in miracles, even when miracles seem impossible. I said yes, and it saved my life. What will you choose? So now, I want to ask you, if you've made it this far in my story, what would you have done if you were in my situation? If your husband had betrayed you while you were dying, would you have confronted him the way I did, or would you have handled it differently? If a man told you he loved you while you were on your deathbed, would you have been brave enough to say yes? Would you have taken that risk, opened your heart to love when you thought you had nothing to offer? If you were told you had 3 months to live, would you have spent that time preparing to die? Or would you have chosen to live as fully as possible for whatever time you had left? And what do you think about Malik's fate? Do you believe in karma? Do you think he got what he deserved? Or do you think what happened to him was too harsh? I want to know what you think. Comment below and tell me, would you have remarried if you were dying? Would you have said yes to the doctor? Do you believe love can heal? What's your take on second chances? And if this story touched you in any way, if it made you cry or think or feel or hope, please do me a favor. Subscribe to Pressify Stories if you haven't already. Just click on that subscribe button to subscribe for free and turn on that notification bell so you'll not miss any update. We have over 70 stories just like this one, covering every genre you can imagine. Stories about love and loss, betrayal and redemption, pain and healing. Stories that will make you feel deeply and think differently about life. Hit that like button and let the algorithm know this story matters. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, someone who's going through something hard, someone who needs hope, someone who needs to know that impossible things happen every single day. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Thank you for caring about my story, my family, my impossible survival. Remember, you matter. Your story matters. Your life matters. And it's never too late for a miracle. Until we meet again, Jasmine Robinson, cancer survivor, wife, mother, and living proof that love can literally save your life. So don't give up on love, because love won't give up on you. See you in the next story. Bye.